Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Having owned a Freelander 2 for a little while now, I've picked up one or two tips along the way from Facebook groups and forums. So in a slight twist to recent videos, I'm going to be giving you some of my top tips for your Freelander 2. So what are we waiting for? Let's get into it. We're going to start off with the biggest tip that I can give you, and probably any Freelander 2 owner can give you, and that's whatever you do not drive this car like your little Miss Daisy. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you're looking at this car and you're thinking, well, I'm going to get one of them, but the fuel economy is probably not as good as I'd like it to be, so I'm going to go really gentle on the engine and try and eke out that miles per gallon as much as I physically can. Well, that's probably a terrible idea, and maybe this isn't the right car for you. You see, these engines are built to quite an industrial level, and they'll easily reach potentially 200,000-300,000 miles if they're serviced and looked after. But things potentially will end up costing you a small fortune if you're shifting through the gears early and taking it really easy on the engine. The first thing that will potentially bite you in the bum is probably going to be the turbo. You see, while you're driving it like little Miss Daisy, the turbo is going to build up all sorts of carbon deposits inside, and when you go to, I don't know, do an overtake, leave a junction, leave a roundabout, and you get that foot planted, the car's not going to be able to give you the power that it needs, and potentially will fall into limp mode. While I'm not saying for you to go out and drive your Freelander 2 like your Lewis Hamilton, Jason Plato, Colin Turkington or Fernando Alonso on a racetrack, what I am saying is give the engine and the turbo something to think about. Try and get them revs up higher, like instead of flicking through the gears closer to 2,000 revs, maybe try and push it to 3 till you're switching gears, and hold it in gears longer. Don't labour the engine like if you're going through 30 and 40 mile an hour speed limit zones. Don't hold the gears in too high of a gear. Get the engine working, get the turbo spooling, get the pressure built, get heat built within the engine. Trust me, the whole drivetrain, turbo, engine and all will all thank you for it. Staying on a bit of a turbo theme, for this next top, we're going to be talking about the turbo vanes on the Freelander 2. And that is, if you're able to, go out and exercise your turbo vanes. If you're not, find a garage that knows these cars and just ask them, can you exercise my turbo vanes? If they know what they're doing and they know about Freelander 2s, they'll know what you're talking about. If not, they'll look at you like you've got 4 eyes and haven't got a clue what words are coming out of your mouth. Let me explain what I'm talking about when it comes to the Freelander 2, and it's going to kind of touch on the last tip that I give you. You see, in my terms, really simple rubbish terms, I'm going to put this in. There's a little electric motor with a little spindly bit with a little pin on it. That pin is connected to a rod, and that rod is connected to the turbo or the turbo vanes. Not sure which, but it's insignificant. You see, the long or the short of it, when you put your foot down, this motor basically goes, oh, you want power, okay, then let me open the turbo so I can provide boost. So it kind of moves to, I don't know, 50-60% to give you a bit of turbo boost, and then when you take your foot off the throttle, it'll then go back to 0%, and it'll fluctuate all the way along. And you might be thinking, why am I talking about 0 to 60%, not 0 to 100%? Well, you see, with how torquey these engines are and how powerful they are, they probably don't really open to 100% that often, which then means that in the turbo vanes themselves, because they're not really getting worked to their fullest extent and opened and closed to 100% and 0%, that's where you get carbon deposits build up. I'm going to leave a link down in the description below about a video that I've done all to do with the actuator and the turbo vanes on the Freelander 2, that after you've watched this, go and check out that video. That will explain in far more detail what I'm on about and have pictures and different bits and pieces on the screen that hopefully will make it that little bit clearer. So go and watch that after you watch this. Anyway, if you're able to work on the car yourself, or you get a garage to do it for you, you basically take this little circlip off of the pin that keeps the rod connected to the pin. Take that off, disconnect the rod. This is the important bit. Make sure it's disconnected from the motor. Do not leave it connected to the motor because you will bust it. Disconnect it and just literally move this rod in and out, and you'll feel that you're in full control of the turbo vanes. And when you first do it, it might move quite lumpily, or it might not move too willingly. Then all of a sudden you might get a tink tink and you might think, oh, I broke something. No, That's just the carbon deposits where you're moving it from 0% to 100% and then back again. That's the carbon deposits finally getting shifted and allowing full range of movement in the turbo itself. This is such an important tip because this will save you probably going into limp mode, probably in the worst place you can think of later down the line, all because that the car finally goes, well, hang on a minute, I can't get the movement on the turbo vanes that I want, so I'm going to put you into limp mode because I think there's something wrong. No, that's just the turbo vanes not being able to be open to their fullest extent. So yeah, if you get the opportunity, go outside, exercise your turbo vanes. Shouldn't take you too long. Follow the video like I've linked to down below, and that will probably save you problems without you realizing it later down the line. For my next tip, I'm going to be talking about be careful just how many times you go in and out of a Freelander 2 if you're out camping or anything like that. And that might be a bit of a confusing statement for you to hear. Well, you see, with the Freelander 2, it basically has different levels of readiness that when the car is completely locked, it's going to use very small amounts from the battery because all it's really got to do is got to keep the alarm system ticking over and the immobilizer system ticking over. I'm sure there's other functions it's also doing, but to the most part, that's all it's really got to do. Well, the Freelander 2's been designed that when you unlock the car, it will wake up certain systems, for example, or if you've left the car unlocked for a while and you undo a door, that will also wake up certain systems, which will mean the drain from the battery gets that little bit greater. With the Freelander 2 being so reliant on a good battery to get the big old engine underneath the bonnet started, it doesn't take much that if you're constantly in and out of the car waking up these systems but not actually driving up, it's not going to take much for that battery to have such a hit that you could find yourself having trouble starting your Freelander 2 up when you want to go to leave or drive away for the day, for example. My tip for you would be that if you're going to be in and out of the car a lot, either leave the door open if it's safe to do so and you're close enough to the car, so at least then the systems will eventually fall into their sleep mode and then it will use very little battery power from the battery, or just push it to on the latch. I think that works the same. So at least then when you go to open the car door, the car doesn't realize that you're actually opening the door and wake up the various systems. That in turn should hopefully save some of the draw from your battery and also save your day from going pear-shaped. With the Freelander 2, it has a Haldex system which controls the four-wheel drive, or at least the drive to the rear wheels. But the problem is, if that's not serviced correctly or in a timely fashion, that can basically seize up. That's rubbish terms, but it can basically seize up and not work, which then means that rather than releasing the rear wheels when you go around corners, it will keep them binded up and basically act like a locked differential, which will make the back wheels skip and jump and potentially lead to a bit of a droning sound. To potentially rule in or out whether you do have a Haldex fault or whether the droning sound you might hear might be a rear differential, wheel bearing, or even some people have reported it as just noisy tyres, then firstly, go into the back of your car, make sure the keys out the ignition, the engine's off, that sort of thing, but go into the back of your car and you'll see that there's a fuse box, as you can see in this video shot next to Rover de Bear below me. Inside the fuse box, there should be a fuse that's labelled on-demand coupling. That's what LandRover call the Haldex. Why they don't call it the Haldex, I'm not so sure. But if you remove that fuse, go for a drive, just see if that noise has gone or not. If it has gone, then it's more than likely probably going to be a Haldex issue. This is not a hard and fast rule by any means, but at least it gives you some form of guidance. The health and safety side of me has to come out in this instance because this is on YouTube, and I have to turn around and say that when you do remove the fuse and you go for a drive, be extra careful because you won't have any driving aids, no traction control, that sort of thing. You'll obviously be in front wheel drive only mode, so just go very careful. I don't want someone to remove it, go down the road and find the next lamppost as they understeer into it. That's just a rough guidance. If you remove the fuse and the noise or the sensation you're feeling is gone, it's probably going to be the Haldex because it's a way of basically turning off the Haldex system on the Freelander 2. If the noise is still there, like I say, it's probably a rear diff, wheel bearing or noisy tyres, but at least this tip should hopefully give you some steer on the direction of what is wrong. Before I go into my next tip, I'm going to ask you this. How do you prefer to be woke up in the morning? Do you prefer to be woke up gradually, nicely, easily, so you can awaken slowly? Or do you prefer to be tipped out your bed and told to sprint as fast as you can down the road? The chances are you're going to go for the first option, right? You want to be woken up quite gradually and easily. Well, that tip goes towards your Freelander 2, and you might think, well, where are you going with this one, Scott? This is a personal pet peeve of mine. It It annoys me so much that people do this. But if you're one of these people, can you please stop doing it now? That'd be much appreciated. If I could change everyone to start up their Freelander to what I call correctly, that would be great. And I might get a lot of hate for this for all I know. But if you're one of these people that gets into your Freelander 2, and if you've got an automatic, you put your foot on the brake, or if you're on the manual, you've put your foot on the clutch before you put the key in and before you push the button, then stop right now. It's going to save you so many problems later down the line. What you're doing might work fine right now, but as your battery ages, you will get more problems. And this is where I'm going with this. With the Freelander 2, when you put your foot on the brake or clutch and then hit that start button, you're basically asking all of the systems on the car to do their wake up, their self checks, all while the engine's cranking over and drawing phenomenal amounts of power from the battery. And if you don't own a Freelander 2, then these cars rely so heavily on their battery, it's unreal. Like if a battery gets 4 or 5 years old, it's probably not going to be much good for the car. I mean, if you've got a battery older than that and it's still working, great, but the chances are you're going to be in for a battery renewal quite soon. So the ultimate question will be, how should you go about starting up your Freelander 2? Well, the best way that I think to start up is this. When you get your fob, don't put any feet on any pedals. Get your fob, put it in the dock, wait for that to click in, then press and hold the start button, and then wait for all the lights to go off the dash. And the most important one for our car is the driver airbag light. Once that goes off and potentially the oil pressure red light comes on, however it works, but mainly the airbag light, when that goes off, then proceed to put your foot on the clutch or brake if you're in an auto, and then hit that start button and start your car up. If you do it this way round, all the systems on the car can do their wake ups, their self checks, that sort of thing, with the entirety of what battery power they need to, and complete them successfully and uninterrupted. And then that way, when you go to crank over the engine, the starter motor can have all the power it wants. It's almost you're doing one thing at a time. You see, if you're one of these people that get in, put the fob in, feet on pedals, and then press the button without turning the ignition on first, then the chances are you're going to have so many DTC or diagnostic trouble codes dumped onto the ECU of your car, it's unreal, and it's really going to cause all sorts of glitches on your Freelander 2. The biggest one will probably be the ABS motor, because if that doesn't complete its checks successfully and confidently, that will be the first one that will potentially either put a brake warning light on your dash or a red stop light or something like that. So yeah, if you're going to start up your Freelander 2, please put your fob in. Don't put any feet on any pedals. Put your fob in, turn the ignition on, wait for the car to wake up, put your seatbelt on, that sort of thing. Get yourself prepped for driving, make sure your mirrors are in the right place, and then crank over the engine. And if you're feeling extra generous, just leave the engine idling a bit before you drive off, so you know oil can get around the system and temperatures can come up, that sort of thing. But yeah, to start up your Freelander 2, please fob in, ignition on, and then wait for the car to do its self checks, then crank it over. That'll be very much appreciated, and it will stop hurting my soul. Thank you very much, everyone. For my final top tip of this video, and this is where my knowledge is gonna get really hazy, so hopefully you can find out more finer details with people on forums or Facebook groups, or just ask in the comment section below, because I know there's some really knowledgeable people that do follow this channel. But if you own a Freelander 2 that's older than 2010, make sure to check how many earth cables you have running from the battery. This is probably one of the most popular modification, is well documented amongst YouTube forums, that sort of thing, that people can do if they've got an older Freelander 2. When they first brought out the Freelander 2, the battery only ever had one earth cable, which was fine when it first left the factory and it was brand spanking new. You see, as the car aged, that's when certain electrical gremlins started setting in, and they were really random ones that people were trying to chase down. And it didn't really make no sense as to what was going wrong, because it didn't really belong to kind of one unit. Anything electrical could suffer from all sorts of gremlins, and it finally got traced back to basically one earth cable just wasn't enough on these cars. They really need two. If you own a Freelander 2 and you know what you're looking at, be sure to check that it's got 2 earth cables. If it hasn't, I believe you can just run a secondary cable from the battery to something like the starter motor, or there's a point on the gearbox just down there that you can run it to and earth it in a second place, and this will save you a lot of electrical gremlins in the future. The reason why I say this is only for cars older than 2010 is by 2010 LandRover pretty much admitted to themselves, plus they also installed the stop start system on the Freelander 2s, that these cars really needed more than 1 earth cable, so they started fitting 2 from standard, so you didn't really need to worry about whether it had 1 or 2, because the chances are it will come with 2 regardless. Just one of them quick tips that pop open your bonnet, have a look at your battery and see how many earth cables you have coming from it. If you have 1, be sure to try and fit a second one. If you have 2, battery cover back on, life is sweet. While I'm under the bonnet of the Freelander 2, and I am going to be repeating myself because I've said this countless times on countless videos, and I'm going to link to a video down in the description below that details why I'm saying this, but please, 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 if your car's coming up for a diesel filter service, or you're doing a diesel filter service yourself, please get a decent diesel filter. Or if you're putting it into a garage, either make sure that they're putting a decent branded diesel filter on your Freelander 2, or if they will allow you, please supply them with a decent diesel filter. And the reason why I'm so passionate about this is there is so many problems of people where they're just complaining about reduced engine performance when they drive for a long period of time. And to put it in really short details, if you go for a cheap or a brand that people just don't give a bit of a nod to and say that's fine, they miss the thermostatic valve in the top of them, or they're either missing it or it just doesn't work. So basically what happens is when the car first starts up, the fuel goes round the whole system through the high pressure fuel pump into the engine, but a certain amount of it will end up, because it's been worked hard by the high pressure fuel pump, it'll be nice and warm, that gets down the leak off pipes, which heads back to the fuel filter. And while the fuel filter is cold, the thermostatic valve is open or something like that, allows diesel to drip into it to warm up the filter quicker, because a warm filter is better, and then it keeps it at a certain temperature, and by doing that it closes off the valve, which then means any fuel that comes from the leak off pipes then gets diverted back to the tank, and it continues like that until the fuel filter cools down, opens back up, you know, that sort of thing. Well, the problem is when these cheap or fuel filters just don't work, what happens is the diesel goes round the system, just basically keeps getting dumped into the fuel filter. The thermostatic valve, because it's not there or not working, will not stop the fuel from going into the diesel filter. So that means the diesel filter gets hotter and hotter. There's a little sensor on the way out that monitors the fuel temperature. That will notice the rise in fuel temperature, and the car's programmed that if the diesel temperature gets too hot, it turns back the power, and it keeps turning back the power more and more and more until you've basically got no more to actually go with. And that's all down to a cheap fuel filter that just doesn't work properly. Main ones that I turn around and say is go for Bosch, because 9 times out of 10 if you peel the Bosch sticker off, it'll have Perflux underneath, or Perflex, I think it's Perflux because I keep getting it wrong in videos. It'll be a Perflux branded fuel filter, and you won't pay so much for it, but you'll get the same branded fuel filter. If you can get a Perflux one, go for it, that's always safe. Coopers, I think Febby Bilstein is another one that should be safe. Just double check on forums, Facebook groups, anything like that, see what fuel filter people are reckoning. But my opinion, I always go Bosch, never had an issue. So if you can get a Bosch, go for that. I'm so passionate about that because so many people have issues and it's such a simple fix to get done. While I'm under it, I thought I'd give you that quick tip. Well, that's just a few of my top tips when it comes to owning a Freelander 2. Have any of your own? Feel free to leave them in the comments section down below, and maybe they'll make it to a future video. If you haven't done so already, it's always much appreciated if you can hit that like button. So if you have done so already, thank you very much. Other than that, I'm going to leave you with this. If you want to see a video that's similar to this, then click up here. If you want to subscribe to the channel, click down here. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.